Welcome back to another MOTOBOB video. Now, the launch season for motorcycles, which runs from around September, October up to Christmas, it's pretty much done. We know most of the new bikes for 2022, and so I thought I'd start rounding them up for your viewing pleasure, starting with my favorite category, the retros. We're going to go in this list in price order ascending, and what I want to know from you at the end is two things. So number one, money no object, which bike would you like to have in your garage? But number two, if it was your money, which one would you actually buy? Let me know at the end down in the comments. But before we get started, a massive thanks to Beeline Moto for sponsoring the channel. They make this little navigation device which I absolutely love, and it goes on any bike, so just strap it to the bars, pair it with your phone, and you're good to go. The good news is that they're giving them away at the moment, so if you sign up to their newsletter, they're drawing a random winner for the few weeks in the run up to Christmas, so follow the link in the description and the instructions I've given down there, and yeah, you could be in with a chance of winning one. Now we'll start the list with the Kawasaki Z650RS, and this is essentially the Z650 modern naked platform, but with the incredible good looks of the Z900RS. Now it's not going to be as punchy as that bigger sibling, so about 67 horsepower peak as opposed to well over 100, but realistically the 650 is aimed at a completely different rider. It's not for that more experienced sporty rider, but someone who's looking for their first big bike with something that looks manageable and not too intimidating, but still offers a few thrills if you really do push it. And then there's the looks. I mean, plenty of these bikes are going to be sold for the aesthetics, and it has to be said that Kawasaki have done an incredible job of the styling and the color choices. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is a great seller in 2022, especially at that very tempting price point. The only potential spanner in the works is the Triumph Trident. It's not quite as retro looking, but it does offer a bit more performance for a similar price point, so that's definitely one to try out if you're thinking about the Z650RS, and also the XR900 from Yamaha. It's been a very popular bike since it was launched, and it's easy to see why, so definitely check those two out if you're thinking about the Kawasaki. Now also down around this price point, we've got the newly announced BSA Gold Star. This is the first new bike announced by the reincarnation of an iconic British motorcycling name, and yeah, it's going to have to be around the 7 grand mark, if not less, to compete with its main competitor, the Royal Enfield Interceptor. Specs wise, they're very similar, so similar power, similar torque, similar dimensions, similar chassis. Even aesthetically, they look very similar, and the only key thing that differentiates them is the engine. So the Enfield's a twin, it's going to be a little bit smoother than the big thumping single in the BSA. I had a good chance to get a close-up look at it at Motorcycle Live a couple of weeks back, and I was pretty impressed with it. Styling wise, it looks the nuts, and also the finish looks pretty decent. I just think the success is massively going to hinge on the pricing, because if it gets a little too steep, I mean, you're getting up to Triumph Street Twin money at 8,400, and that bike is better spec'd, it's faster, and also, even though the build is decent on the BSA, it's not quite at the Triumph standard. So yeah, can it get low enough to be competitive with the 6 grand starting price of the Enfield Interceptor? It's a tall order, but hopefully they can do it. Now, speaking of the Bonneville lineup, we've got the new Goldline Special Edition paint jobs for 2022. There's a full video about them linked to in the description. I was lucky enough to go up to Triumph HQ to have a good look at them firsthand. And yeah, essentially they offer a more vibrant, punchy color option with a bit of hand-painted gold lining, just to give it that more premium touch than the standard paint offerings. They're not limited in terms of like by number, there's not just 500 of each, they're just limited by time, so they're available for 2022, and then I guess on the 1st of January 2023 you'll no longer be able to order one. The entry point for the gold lines will be the T100 at £9,900, so that's 600 quid on top of the standard most basic paint job. And then you've got the Street Scrambler, the T120, the 1200 Scramblers, the Bobber and the Speedmaster, all with their own gold line finishes, and then there's a special edition of the Street Twin, the EC1, the Ton-Up edition of the Thruxton, and the 221 edition of the Rocket 3. So there's something a little more vibrant on offer for the whole Bonnie lineup this year, and my personal favourite has to be either the Ton-Up Thruxton, the Red Bobber, or I think it might be the Baja Orange Goldline edition of the 1200 Scrambler XE. Interestingly though, no Speed Twin in this sort of Goldline lineup. Makes me think that there might be a different special edition of the Speed Twin coming this year. I mean, we haven't had a TFC for a while. TFC's their Triumph Factory Custom, so not only did they get a black and gold paint job, but also some like proper super premium components. A TFC Speed Twin would be a heck of a bike, so hopefully I'm right. But look, before you spend spend that £9,900 on a T100 Goldline, let me show you this for the same money, the XR900. It's a completely different proposition. It's more sporty and performance orientated than the laid back and easygoing vibe of the Bonnevilles. But what a lot of bike for your money. Now I must admit I haven't managed to bag a ride on one yet, but it is a retro body kit essentially on the MT09. I borrowed that one from Fowler's in Bristol earlier this year, and yeah, it's pretty incredible, especially at that price point. The main thing for me was the engine. So it's an 890cc inline triple, and it's just a joy to use on the road. 117 horsepower peak, so that's plenty, but also it's got bags of mid-range, and the sound is beautiful for a stock exhaust. The only thing I didn't like about it was the looks. Now that is subjective, but it's just not the sort of bike I'd normally go for. The XSR though, it comes in and solves that problem. Visually it's not perfect, that seat hump will take a bit of getting used to, and also it's obviously a modern chassis and engine just with some retro looking bits bolted on. But look, as a bike to ride, and at that price point and with the looks that are more palatable than the MT, this one is a very strong proposition in my book. In fact, so should be the next bike in the list, the Ducati Scrambler Urban Motard. You see, I really enjoyed the Scrambler Night Shift last year. I borrowed it from Ducati, and it's a more road-focused version of the Scrambler Icon, so lower flat bars. But what I think it could have benefited from was like genuine road tires instead of those knobbly or semi-knobbly Pirelli MT60s, and you've also got the 18-inch front wheel. But that's basically what Ducati have done with the Urban Motard. It's got super sticky Pirelli Diablo Rosso tires, and then a more agile 17-inch front wheel. On top of that, they've given it this awesome paint job that looks like it was heavily inspired by their own Hyper Motard RVE, which was announced last year. And yeah, for me, this now looks like the most exciting bike, with a road focus anyway, in the whole Scrambler lineup. Now look, the price is TBC for this one, but the previous gen was $11,399, so I'd expect similar, if not a little bit more. But yeah, it's the new updated Suzuki Katana. Now I've never made a video about the modern incarnation of the Katana, but I have ridden it. I got one from Fowler's in Bristol as a courtesy bike when my own bike was being serviced, and I was really impressed with it. The looks, which of course throw back to the original Katana, you know, they're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it is one of those bikes that does look better in the flesh, and it's always going to stand out from the crowd. And then underneath it, you've got a bike that's very nice indeed to ride. You've got an inline four that's super smooth, and it's quick and powerful. The chassis is good, it handles and stops as well as it goes. And then for 2022, it gets a few updates that are inherited from its modern equivalent, the GSX S1000. So a few tweaks to the engine, so Euro 5 compliance, a little bit more power, some tweaks to the electronics as well, but also a couple of new paint jobs, and it looks particularly good to me in this deep sort of royal blue with the gold rims. Now the second Ducati Scrambler on this list is the bigger 1100 version. For 2022, they've announced this Tribute Pro, which is a slightly more retro alternative to the standard Dark Pro and Sport Pro. It takes the same L-twin air-cooled engine that makes about 85 horsepower. The chassis is pretty much the same, but they've just given it some black spoke wheels, a brown saddle, a yellow paint job, and a heritage Ducati logo, all to celebrate 50 years since they started making air-cooled twins. Certainly looks very nice to me and a little more understated than the Urban Motard. But I think this has got to be one of the most highly anticipated and desirable bikes in the retro market in 2022, and at the upper end of the pricing spectrum at 12.5 grand is the new Kawasaki Z900RS SE. So it takes the standard Z900RS, which is already a decent bike, quick for a retro and handles very nicely indeed, but it just adds a bit more spec in terms of performance, as is always the way with the Kawasaki SE versions. So there's now Brembo's M4.32 brake calipers, a radial master cylinder and steel braided hoses, new settings in the fully adjustable upside down fork, and then an Öhlins S46 shock, which is also fully adjustable and should be a decent upgrade on the standard bike. You also get the SE logo on the side panels and this yellow ball paint job with the gold rim rims. And yeah, what a great looking bike, but it also should be a hoot to ride. In fact, for me, on paper, out of this list, it's between this bike, the XSR900, and then the Speed Twin, which hasn't been updated, but for me has always been my favorite retro. I can feel a really good head-to-head test coming on for next year. Still plenty of other options to consider for 2022 that haven't been updated for this year. So the Moto Guzzi V7, which was updated last year with a bit more power, and also it's one of the most characterful bikes in the retro market. The BMW R9Ts, I mean, be it the Urban GS or the standard pure version or the top spec R9T, you know, there's something for everyone in that range. And you get the distinctive power delivery and bark of the Boxer Twin. And then the benchmark is the Royal Enfield 650 Twins. The Interceptor is one of the best selling bikes in the UK, and it's easy to see why. It's so much bike for your money, and that £6,000 price point is just so difficult to beat. In fact, that's why it makes a great starting point in the search for a retro bike, because it just shows you what you can get for the lowest price. But like I say, let me know which one you'd pick, both in terms of like dream bike, but also if you had to go and pay for it yourself, which one would be your choice? Let me know down in the comments, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.